Hi, Dennis Weiss for Eagle Communications. Welcome to Like Ike for the Inauguration Month. We are going to talk 1956 inauguration, Dwight David Eisenhower, Pam Sanfilippo, Troy Elkins, my experts of the day. How are you guys this fine day?
Just great.
We're filming this in November. What a beautiful day outside on the campus. There's construction going on. There's improvements happening outside. And we have a fascinating topic to talk about, our favorite president, Dwight David Eisenhower. Okay, Pam, kick us off.
Okay, well, the election in November of 1956 pitted Eisenhower against his 52 rival, Adlai Stevenson, and he won by a great margin. We have a map here that shows the Electoral College results. Eisenhower received 457 of those, Adlai Stevenson 74. So, as far as the popular vote was concerned, he won with 57% of the majority of the population to 42 for Stevenson. So, even better than his 52 campaign.
You know, as we have the luxury of sitting here and talking about the past, and what a great subject matter we always have to discuss, part of the value of this, I think, is to remind people a little bit, maybe have a little hope about some things. Dwight David Eisenhower was a very positive president because he solved problems. And he did it in a way that made more people happy than it made upset. And his electoral results show that pretty clearly across the country. So we have a great thing to talk about. So yes. And love the car. Not too many open-top cars in the inaugural parade these days.
No, that's a model of the parade car that Eisenhower rode in that we use for some of our programs here. Nice display. And so people had been concerned after Ike had the heart attack in 56 whether he would even run for a second term. Of course he did, and people were confident that he would do a great job in the second term, and kind of kicked it off with when he took the oath. He had the Bible turned to the Bible that his mother had given him when he graduated from West Point. He had it turned to Psalm 33, verse 12, which says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he chose for his inheritance." So something that meant a lot to him.
When we toured the boyhood home earlier this year, the family Bible there was an important part of the features of that home. And for those who saw the program, they probably remember, but if you haven't been in that home, it shrinks when you put three people in a camera in there considerably. So I suppose when you put a half a dozen kids running around from the neighborhood, it really shrank. So that Bible having such a prominent place in the official room, in the sitting room, in the room reserved for Mrs. Eisenhower, I thought that was kind of an important feature.
And unfortunately, neither she or her husband were alive to see Dwight take office, either election. And then in his inaugural address, he talked very much about the growth of the country, the expansion, and everything great, the prosperity that the United States has achieved to that point. But he spends most of the inaugural address talking about the role of the United States in the nation, in the world, and what our obligations are.
Yeah, and it was an interesting pivot, isn't it? You know, Eisenhower, one of the slogans that even the person who only knows a little about Dwight David Eisenhower's administration, 8 years of peace and prosperity. We make that point all the time here, but it was created out of something, and it was moving into something else in the world. So I think Mr. Eisenhower always had that forethought hat on, here's the challenges we face. Here's what's in front of us as a nation, as a people, decisions that were to be made. And he spent considerable time in his inaugural address doing that.
Right. Right. Let me talk about some.
Oh, well, yeah, some of the stuff we have is actually one of many license or bumper stickers that came out during the campaign, 56 campaign. And it's, instead of the I Like Ike, it's the I'm for Ike too, for Texas of 56, making it look like a license tag.
That seems almost like something you'd see on our teenagers' texting device today, doesn't it? The shorthand.
The Twitter version.
Yeah, the Twitter version. At. It's almost got an ad in there too, you see.
Much easier to read, I mean, at least for me it is.
Yeah.
So. The other is, this is a cartoon that was drawn, and it was drawn by a Jargus Bergs, who is from Latvia, and just celebrating the 52 and 56 election, and Eisenhower and Nixon being elected. And basically, Mr. Bergs has even wrote a little letter on the back, and this is from early in 57. And it's just saying that today the world stands at the crossroads of the future. The roads are dominated by two leading nations of the world. One of these, the United States, represents the ideal democracy, but the other, the Soviet Union, the merciless despotism. So this was
And the author was a Latvian.
Latvian. So very Eastern European, from people with Eastern European views had held this election as being very important for Eisenhower to continue on.
We're in the middle of the Cold War then.
Yes.
The Cold War that was only that far from being a war more from time to time. And I think maybe in today's universe of where we all know everything on every device, the fact that this news was still spread mostly manually, this was an example of mass media, this newspaper in front of us. So having somebody that was a Latvian write a letter to the president, including cartoon, that's a political statement in the method of communication of that time that would equivocate with 100,000 tweets about the subject today. I mean, it is. And the fact that it has survived in this form at the museum as a testament to what was going on at the time points out the unique opportunity that this library and this facility offers to the world. We can look at real history and think, and hopefully, Pam, think about it.
Right, and you're right. The newspapers of the time were all praising Eisenhower, and that's probably why the people reelected him. They wanted him to continue the policies that he had started during his first term in order to keep that Cold War cold and maybe bring peace throughout the world. That was certainly his goal and his talk in the mission. And there are a couple of points that I have found interesting about the inauguration itself. He did have Marian Anderson sing the national anthem.
I didn't know
right
that.
Right before that. We just found that in one of the newspapers.
Oh, really?
And have a picture of that can be added. And so that was very, very interesting, since later on she would be denied the opportunity to sing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial at the beginning of the Civil War centennial after Eisenhower was out of office.
Why? Do we know? Why?
Because she was African American.
Why both? I mean, but what was the change? What do we know about that? It's just too interesting a subject to not ask why.
I don't know if Eisenhower helped to select, who was going to be there at his inauguration. There was a committee that was formed that talked about the Negro participation in the inaugural committee. And there's some very interesting, this is a report that was prepared in February of 1957 that talks about it. And it says, The inauguration of President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon, 1957, saw the American Negro cast in an exciting, challenging, and difficult role. Exciting because inaugural visitors would witness, for the first time in the nation's history, white and Negro people eating at the same restaurants, living at the same hotels, attending the same schools, places of amusement and entertainment. Challenging because the whole concept of Negro full equality and rights is relatively new. It goes on to talk about that.
I think that's the answer to the question, then, isn't it? This is a policy statement by who
Exactly.
sang the national anthem.
Exactly.
It's Eisenhower crafting policy in front of people, the public, the citizenry, leading by example.
And it's
No
after
surprise.
the Brown versus Board of Education decision, which desegregates the schools and other institutions. And so this is the first real public example that Eisenhower is able to demonstrate his support of. So,
Leaders lead, they stand up, they walk out front, they do something to represent their point of view. And Eisenhower is the best example of that, that we need look no further in the presidential line to find a guy who made decisions and led by example. Great story, tremendous story.
and the papers are just full of all of these pictorials of Eisenhower's career and the people there, and the excitement. They talk about how it was cloudy that morning and rainy, and then the clouds broke through as he was giving his inaugural address. Certainly gives that visual, what it portends for the future of the country.
Well, I was born in 1957, so Eisenhower is my birth president. I was born in August of that 57 years, so that's an interesting thing to me to connect my old life. I feel old most days. The length of my life is coterminous with Eisenhower's political life, and the influence that he had on our nation as a person, as our leader, has been tremendous. I think of one of the first 2 or 3 times I had Carl Weisenbach on camera, and we're talking about it, and he was talking about the researchers who come here. The numbers of people who come here to write books, to study, and we were in his office shooting something in there, and maybe it was before the camera came on, I think it was, and Tim Reeves came in. He said, I've got to go pull some papers for the administration. And I foolishly said to Carl, what administration? He said, the president's administration. So, how relevant Eisenhower still is today. But it's cool that we can have these archives and to tell the story. Hey, I noticed something on the map. You need to explain to me. Why is there a baby's cradle right in Iowa? I know why there's a fishing pole in Colorado, but a baby cradle in Iowa, and the golf clubs there I understand, but the baby cradle, I don't know.
Boone, Iowa, that's where Mrs. Eisenhower, Mamie, was born.
Oh, really? Look at that. A real expert to answer the question just like that. That's cool. Isn't it so interesting? Because this is the presidential library, you get to see things. Now, we get to see them right here in front of us, but these archive displays that are rotated all the time are so people can see things and go, I wonder why that is. And I suppose if you don't have Pam Semfilippo, you'd have to Google it, but pretty cool answer.
Well, and the other interesting thing on this is, I don't know if you want to talk about it, the campaign actually only ran from August 21st, which is when the Republican National Committee nominated him for the second term, to the election on November 6th.
Don't we wish it were that way today? Yes, we do.
And then it goes into detail about the number of miles traveled by the president and vice president.
A whole whopping 15,000 by the air.
By air. But a very new form of transportation at that time. Much less on rail at that point than the 52 election, and then motorcade.
So this is a tougher question, Pam. So if you don't know this, that's okay. But What model of airplane do you think they sketched out there?
That I'll turn over.
I do believe that's supposed to be a sketch of the constellation.
Yes.
Which would have been
Another
the Columbine 3
correct answer.
at this point.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
No,
sir.
I was just going to say, have you heard that the Air Force One, the Constellation, the original, is being refurbished and maybe gets flown back to Kansas one of these days? Read something about that? You probably know more.
Read that, and it's one of those ones we really wish we could have it here, but we're not quite big enough, and we really can't build a runway to bring it in. So we're hoping it's someplace close so we can actually get to see it ourselves.
They'll land pretty short. So, I know a guy knows a guy, you know what I'm saying. So.
There's a highway not too far.
Exactly. A little thing like that wouldn't have stopped Eisenhower during the Ardennes Forest. So.
Well, you got plenty of engineers to come in there and set something like that up.
We
too.
just don't tell KDOT we're going to land a Constellation on Buckeye and go from there. But isn't that cool? I think maybe, some of this stuff, I'm the nerd at the table, but I saw the drawing there and I go, that's got to be the Constellation, but.
Oh, you're not the only nerd at the table, so.
We all three.
And I kind of what I found interesting about this whole map is that the total miles was 16,993.
Really?
And it's what they listed at the bottom. And I just out of curiosity, I had to check. As of the start of October, both presidential candidates had traveled over 200,000 miles apiece campaigning.
I'm sure.
Just to show you what the increase in travel has become for presidential campaigns.
Yeah, I just looked at the arrows all come out of the east, the lines all come out of the east, but there's 1, 2, 3 that go to the west coast. There's 2 that go to Florida. There's some road trips that go up into New Jersey, Connecticut. New York, New Jersey is as far north as anybody went, and over to Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going very many places, really.
No.
Peoria, Illinois, Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah, what a change from today.
Mm-hmm.
And we have all the mass media where you can speak to anybody anywhere simultaneously, but yeah.
Well, I would imagine he really didn't have to campaign as much as he did with the first election. Mm-hmm. People knew him. He was busy. Right before the election, of course, he was dealing with all kinds of issues that kind of cut short some of his campaigns as well and sent him back to D.C.
How many people could you name on the map on the picture behind me, Pam, before you really put you on the spot?
That I would not.
We need to do that. I want to program you out there. I want a program where we take this picture and we identify as many people as possible. Put your sophomore class on that project.
There you go.
It doesn't have to be done right now, but I want to do that, even if it's just the bottom layer, because Eisenhower is surrounded by people's stories, and those people are up there.
And we have a lot of their papers. And I do see Marian Anderson right there.
Looky there. See, you already started on the project. I think that would be so fun to get a high school class involved with, because, everybody's interests are different. Kids, Eisenhower, they're bored immediately because they think they know everything about him, right? But not when you get into the people like, who's that? And why are they significant? Somebody will be interested in the answer to that question. I think we should do that. I think that'd be a terrific thing to do. So that's your job.
Okay.
Okay. You can ask for help if you want. I can recruit you some high schoolers or something.
There you go. All right.
All right. So we're down to a minute. What's our final sign off about the inaugural, and why is it important, and why does it make us Like Ike?
You want to start?
I'll let you have that one.
I think it was a distinct voice of the people saying, we like Ike, we still like Ike for another 4 years, and he would go on to leave a legacy during those next 4 years.
We just came through a real tough presidential election season. If we would have been adults then, I think you could fairly say that this election was a generous outpouring of hope for America and trust placed in the leader of America. 457 electoral votes, but the country trusted Dwight David Eisenhower to lead them in through another 4 years and one of the more difficult times in history, where you had truly two superpowers pointed right at each other all the time. Great program, so enjoyed it. Troy, Pam, thank you for escorting me through the 1956 inauguration. I'm Dennis Weiss. I work for Eagle Communications. These fine folks work right here at the Eisenhower Presidential Library, Museum, and Boyhood Home. We're glad you watched us today. Hope you have a great day.